So I work as the director for NGO partnerships for a girls' education campaign called 10 times 10. I've had the opportunity to meet and learn from hundreds of girls in the developing world over the course of our campaign. We've created a multimedia campaign focused on spreading the word to the farthest corners of the world on the value that an education that a girl receives has on entire communities. The cornerstone piece to our project is a feature film, a major motion picture that I hope you all will go see next spring in 2013 called Girl Rising. Another part of this process, though, has allowed me to attend many events that are focused on girls and women's empowerment, education. Sometimes I even get the chance to speak at them. And something I find frightening, actually, is that these events are usually completely attended by just women. In fact, I'm sometimes the only man in attendance. And so I keep getting asked the same question over and over and over again, and it's always phrased slightly differently. And it's something like, hey, Justin, so as a man, why do you think it's important to educate girls? Or, Justin, why is it so important to speak out for the rights of women and girls? So today, since I have a little less than 16 minutes left, I thought I'd use my time to share with you a more personal account and the longer answer on why I personally believe, as a man, that investing in girls is the best investment the global community can make to see sustainable changes and lift countries out of poverty. I'm going to share with you some anecdotes from journal entries that I've made after sharing time with girls in some of the countries that we're working on from the project. These observations are meant to inspire, and they're really just coming from my heart. I wanted today's talk to be about storytelling so that you could understand from my perspective why this is my conviction. So my first story comes from a place in Uganda, and the observation goes something like this: that little boys grow up to be men, and that respect for girls turns into respect for women, and that this all starts when girls become empowered at a really young age. So we were in Kampala, just outside actually. The main highway goes down this road, and there's a little mud hut in this town called Mpigi where we met this girl named Lydia. Lydia is a phenomenal student. She's 13 years old. She's excelling in school. We learned Lydia's story. She's the only surviving member of her entire family. She lost all three of her siblings to HIV. They were all born with it, and they all died. She also lost both of her parents to HIV. She's the only surviving member at 13 years old. We then found that Lydia was living in this house with her Jaja. Her Jaja's her grandma. Now, Jaja was an amazing woman. She's obviously favorite color is purple. She's dressed from head to toe in this gown. She herself is battling a disability. She's old and she can hardly walk. She lost all of her siblings to HIV and AIDS. So as we were talking to Jaja, we quickly found that she's this wonderfully jovial woman who laughs hysterically at her own jokes, and there were all these little boys running around. There were 8 little boys in that house, and as they began to tell us their stories, we found that it was one woman, Jaja, one girl raising 8 orphaned boys in a house, a little one-bedroom house next to the highway. So Jaja sort of scooted over to her makeshift kitchen, and she began to roll out dough with a beer bottle. She was going to make samosas for the children and also to sell. She began to tell us stories. And as the day progressed, we began to observe what was happening. Well, Jaja just kind of sat there cracking jokes to herself and laughing hysterically, but all of the children were following Lydia around. All of these little boys were following their sister around as she studied. They would mimic her. They admired her. They looked up to her with everything. So we started talking to the boys, and most of the boys said that they had dreams of going to school. I mean, you can imagine that some of them were so young. Some of them were actually in school. They said that Lydia is their tutor. And most of them dreamed of becoming teachers or doctors. We asked Lydia on that day what her dream was, and she told us, well, my dream is that I want to learn to drive a car. And I said, well, why do you want to learn how to drive a car? And she said, I want to take my brothers down that highway. I want to take my brothers down that road and take them to where everybody else gets to go. And, you know, I think that evening when I got home, I thought about what she had said, and I thought that it's really incredible, despite all of these children's odds that they're up against, and Lydia in particular, she not only is carrying the burden of an entire family of 8 new siblings, but she's excelling in school, and she's becoming a leader, and she's guiding her brothers up, her and her Jaja. I have no doubt that those boys are going to grow up to be teachers and doctors, and that they're never going to forget that a big counterpart to their own success was their sister and their grandmother. My next story comes from rural northeastern Ethiopia, so way in the north. It was a phenomenal community we got to visit there. They're nomadic people who literally follow their camel and goat herds through the desert searching for water and for vegetation. And so we met with the elders, a group of men in this village who traditionally have always made every decision in the history. They're broken up into nomadic tribes of about 30 to 70 people, and they just wander through the desert. And so these men were sitting down with us, and they were telling us how this nonprofit group came into their community several years ago and decided to implement nomadic classrooms. So they were classrooms that could be broken down, just like all of their homes, packed onto donkeys and moved out within a day. And so they accepted the idea, and they began to train the elders on the subjects. Obviously, since nobody had ever been educated in the community, they had to first teach them math, science, language arts. Well, the elder men decided that they really didn't want to have much to do. Here's a picture of the nomadic classroom with some of the girls inside of it. The older men decided that they didn't really want much to do with the education piece, so they decided to elect a group of elder women to run the schools called the Central Management Committee. It was the first time ever that they elected a group of females to have any power in this village. So I sat down then with the Central Management Committee, and let me tell you, this committee was a force to be reckoned with. They were cloaked in all red and gold. They really were very frank and matter of fact. They're the type of women who looked you straight in the eye and didn't have much to say, but what they said was really important. That woman there in the middle, her name's Basu. Basu's the leader of the Central Education Committee. She told us that she's the practitioner of everything medically related to females for the last 40 years, and that she had performed female genital cutting on every single girl during her 40 years. She then went on to describe the process by which she learned how to teach the children. She said that when this nonprofit group had arrived in their community and began to teach the kids about math and science, the teachers as well, the elders, they also took the opportunity to teach the elders about their bodies, safety, human rights, their own rights. She said that in that moment, she realized that what she had done was wrong. She looked me square in the eye and she said, "I haven't cut a girl for 7 years." And then she looked down, just like she is in that picture. She looked down, she was bashful, and the conversation ended. And you know, I've been in many communities where there's deep-rooted traditions that have been going on for hundreds of years, traditions like female genital cutting, like early marriage. We constantly are trying to figure out, well, how can we eradicate these? And what I think happened in this particular community were two things. A group of elder men who had power gave a group of elder women a little bit of power. The elder women then had influence over the next generation. The other thing that happened was these elder women gained some useful knowledge that they wouldn't have had before. They learned about their safety, they learned about their rights. So they utilized the little bit of newfound power they had, they utilized this useful knowledge that they had, and they decided it was wrong. And 40 years of tradition eradicated in one generation. My next story actually comes from the same village. One of the girls who was pictured in the last photograph of all of them in school, her name's Bula. So Bula's 11, and she was really only comfortable talking to me when her best friend, who's pictured behind her, was right by her side. Like any teenage girl, they would laugh at almost everything that came out of my mouth. They would grab each other's arms and just giggle. And we were really interested to learn about what constitutes a girl's day in this community, in this nomadic community, and what school's like. Bula's excelling in school. She's in the second cycle of the third three-cycle program that these alternate basic education centers have. She told us that she generally wakes up before the sun rises. This is a normal day. She cleans her house, and then she cleans her neighbor's house. Then she goes out and milks the camels and goats. Then she comes in and prepares breakfast for her whole family, and the sun has yet to rise. Then she goes to school, and she studies all day long. After school, she usually walks around 6 kilometers to go get clean water, to come back to feed her camels and goats and her family. Then she prepares dinner. By this time, it's dark. There's no electricity, so she studies by candlelight every night. She loves school. She told us her favorite subject was math and science, and I asked her what she wanted to be. She told me that she wanted to be a healthcare worker, and so I said, well, why do you want to be a healthcare worker? She said, I want to be a healthcare worker because there is no healthcare in my community. We're always moving, and I want to be the solution to that problem. And I was taken back by her answer. That's pretty advanced for an 11-year-old. I want to be the solution to the problem. And then she quickly started talking again. She said, but I'm engaged to be married. I just met my husband, my fiance, last week. My father found a great man with a lot of camels. I'm going to be married. And in my head, I thought, this is so strange that she's sharing with me her dream of becoming a doctor or a healthcare worker when she knows as soon as a woman in her community is married, they're unable to finish school. So I pondered that one, and I thought about it for a while. What I realized is that once a girl sees the value of an education, she also sees the value for the education for the next generation. And while Bula shared with me that dream as if it were her own, I know that she actually shared with me because she knows that when she has children someday, they will be the solution to the problem. They will become doctors and they will become health workers. From there, I'm going to take you to a place that's a little closer to home. I was on the other side of Brazil, right across the border actually, but in the Andes of Peru at 5,100 meters, working on the project. And this town is on top of a glacier. It's called La Rinconada. It's about 100,000 people crammed, the very top of an icy mountain that never melts. The reality for anyone there to be successful is meek, much less if you're a girl. There's one overcrowded school, and we were really interested when we went there to visit this school to find out what constitutes a girl's dream at the top of a glacier where there's no real tangible escape. So as the girls began coming up to us and talking to us about their dreams, what we found was that we were learning more about the realities of the situation for girls and adolescents in that village. Since it's a mining town, the village opens its doors nightly to masses of brothels where the miners squander their earnings. The reality for a girl as she grows up in this town is HIV and AIDS, it's gender-based violence, it's early pregnancy, it's trafficking. So instead of dreams, we were learning a lot harder realities for the girls. This whole time there was another girl who was not interested in talking to us at all. She sort of sat away from us at her table the whole day. She was just sort of being. She was patient. She was writing incessantly in her journal. She would close her book. She would just watch. And as the night began to fall and the rest of the girls began to go home, we went over and approached this girl. She was meek and she was sort of slumped over. She didn't look very happy, and we asked her what was inside of her book, and she opened it, and it was pages and pages of poetry. Poetry written over and over by her favorite Spanish poets, a lot of it that she had written herself, and she just began to brighten. This girl that was down like this and shy all day, her smile became so big it could hardly fit into her mouth. She said her name was Senna. Senna was 14 when we met her, and she told us her story that day. She said that she was named Senna because her father loved Xena, the princess warrior, who he had seen on TV. She was born a mere 2 pounds, very, very tiny, and she almost died. And her father decided to name his daughter after the princess warrior because he wanted her to fight for her life. Senna fought for her life, and she survived, and she started going to school. And her father continued to instill this strength within her. He told her, Senna, you are a warrior. The more you know, the better you'll fight. The more education you get, the stronger you'll be. He told her this every single day. He said, you have all the makings of an engineer. One day, Senna got home from school, and she found out that her dad had had a terrible accident in the mine. He didn't die, but he was very sick. She had to stop going to school, and she picked up a job cleaning the public pit latrines, the only place that a girl her age could work that was safe. She made cents per day. Those cents she would give to her family to help pay for his medication. His health began to deteriorate very quickly, and unfortunately, Senna's father died. When Senna told us her father died, she also said that's when she began to recite her poetry. As we sat in front of her, she literally became a different person. I saw something that was so much more ethereal. It's like nothing I've ever seen. She stood up and she began to recite poetry to us, and the warrior and the anger and the passion and the opportunity and everything she had was like nothing I'd ever seen. So Senna now recites her poetry to inspire others. She's excelling in school. She's won 2 poetry competitions in the country of Peru. She's well on her way to becoming the very first girl she's ever known to complete school and go on to university. Countless times, I have seen that it's been a man or a brother, a teacher, a male influence in a girl's life that has instilled in them the strength and the dignity that they deserve to lift them from the barriers that they were in. This happens all the time. So my question is, why aren't men taking a more active role in girls' lives? We've got Senna, we've got Jaja, Lydia, we've got the Central Education Committee. We've got all girls all over the world. It's time we stand up and start taking action. Men, these moments matter. Everything that we say and do matters. You're around girls and women all of the time. Encourage them. Encourage them like Senna's father encouraged her. Use your own opportunities and the own knowledge that you've been given to mentor a girl. Open up a new door for a girl. Talk to her. Talk to her and listen to her carefully. Her stories, her ideas, her perspectives could change you. We know that an educated girl will marry later. She will have fewer children. We know she's more likely to stand up to abuse and less likely to contract HIV and AIDS. We know that when a girl gets educated, she grows up and could become a mother. She will educate her sons and her daughters equally. Her decisions begin to matter. Her decisions begin to shape the decisions that make her family, that make her community, that shape her society, and eventually shape her entire nation. Folks, I believe that we're in a point right now in our lifetime where in this generation we can see in our lives a change happen. I encourage you all to become active participants. Do something simple. Act for girls. I truly believe that in our lifetime, we can look back on these days from a gender-inclusive perspective. And we'll remember when we used to say how important it was to educate and invest in girls. I want us all to feel proud at that day, knowing that we were active participants in a moment in time that unlocked a better future and more opportunities for girls and for the entire world. Thank you.